Hey gang, how you doing? All right, so for your Wednesday assignment today, it's a little bit rough. I do want to build a whole table in Sketchup. And yes, you have to do it. So make sure that you're paying attention to this video because with a tapered leg thing, a lot of you kind of skipped the video and handed in a pile of rubbish. I think we can do better. So I am actually going to be grading this one and taking a look on whether or not you were able to follow my directions from this video. So make sure that you're watching and paying attention. Okay, so hopefully this goes well for you. I know that it's tough, so bear with us, but I'll walk you through the whole thing. I first want you to open up a SketchUp, make sure you're in feet and inches. And then what I want you to do is I want you to click on this mouse, and let's get rid of this lady. And remember, if I'm going too fast, you can always just pause the video, back it up, rewind it. That's important. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to grab the rectangle tool, which is right here. And it'll already be on the rectangle. You click on this origin, and I want you to build me a blue rectangle. Just like that. Now remember, if we don't touch anything, we can now type in how big we want that rectangle. And how big we want that rectangle is we want 1 space and a quarter, which is 1 divided by 4. And then we put inches, so we put the quotes. And then put a comma. And we want the exact same number, 1 space, 1 divided by 4, and then put inches. And then when you hit enter, you got really, really tiny. But if we zoom in a bunch using our little wheel on our mouse, we can zoom in, and there's 1 inch and a quarter by 1 inch and a quarter. And for those rookies building with me, we know that that's how big we built our leg. So there's some of the dimensions of our leg. Now, I should talk about moving around a little bit. I did talk about this in the last video, but apparently some people didn't watch the last video. So this little, you want to have a mouse when you're doing SketchUp. If you're trying to do this on a Chromebook without a mouse, you got to stop what you're doing right now and go get yourself a mouse. Go pick a different computer that has a mouse, or find a mouse in your house and plug it into your Chromebook, because you need to have one. The scroll button, this little wheel, scrolls in and out, and you can see how on my screen I'm zooming in and out right now. If that wheel, though, is also clickable. If you click the wheel, you can rotate around the object. And that's really, really helpful. And last but not least, if you hit Shift and then click the wheel, you can grab it and kind of put it and drag it around like that. So these are three important things that you're not going to be able to survive without doing. So go get a mouse and try those things out. So here we have a rectangle. Our rectangle is beautiful because it's 1 1/4 by 1 1/4, just like we built in shop class. So then what we're going to do is we're going to use this push-pull tool. It's a rectangle with an arrow. We come over to our object and we pull it upwards like that. It doesn't really matter how high we make it, because we're going to enter how high we want it. We want this leg to be 23 space and 1/4, 1 divided by 4. And then we got to make our inches, so make your quotes and hit enter. And if we zoom out, and then we use our little trick where we hit Shift, and then we're going to pull this up, zoom out some more. There's our beautiful table leg, and I can click my mouse button. Looks great. So now this seems odd. Don't do this part because I'm going to show you something a little weird. But if I start building on this and I build a rectangle here, and then I want to pull this out, you're going to see that it kind of looks like it makes it all in one piece of wood. And we know that the leg and the apron here are 2 different pieces of wood. So don't do what I just did. And if you did, back up with me and just go back to a basic leg here. What I want you to do is I want to click on the mouse and I want to triple click on the leg. 1, 2, 3. And what that should do is that should select the entire leg. And you can see that the whole thing's selected. When the whole thing's selected, we can right click and come down to what's called make a component. And we're going to do that, and we're just going to call it leg and click OK. And what that does is that recognizes this as one piece of wood, one separate thing. So if I add anything onto it, it's going to be a separate piece of wood, a separate thing. So that's really a helpful little thing. Well, there we have our table leg, and we know that that's one piece of wood. The computer knows that that's a separate piece of wood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try building my apron now. So I'm going to use my rectangle tool again, and I'm going to come to this top edge. I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to make a little rectangle. And it doesn't quite matter how big, because we're going to enter the dimensions down here. And for those of us who built the apron in class the other day, we know that the apron is 2 1/2, so 1 divided by 2, and then inches. Then we're going to go comma. And we know that we made that leg thickness 3/4. So 3 divided by 4 inches. And click enter. So that's how big our apron is. It's 2.5 inches by 3/4 of an inch. What we're going to do is we're going to come back to this pull tool, and we're going to pull it back this way. And you can see how now it looks like two separate objects. Now, how far did we want to pull it? When I pulled it, I got to tell you that we want that to be 14 space and a half. So 1 divided by 2. 14.5 inches is how much we pull that out, and hit enter. And now that is at 14.5 inches. So if we zoom out, there's our first leg and our first apron. And I think we're looking really good so far. Not too bad. I'll pull it out a little bit, maybe even use my shift key. So there's our leg right there. So what we want to do is we want to copy this leg over here. Now there's a really easy way to copy in Sketchbook. If we come over to this move tool, well, the first thing that would happen is we would move the leg. We don't want to move the leg, we want to copy it. So we grab the leg and then we hit Control. And while you're holding Control down, we can move this leg down and plop it right there. And now it's exactly where we want it. So that's starting to look like our table a little bit. Not too bad, right? Now the only thing that I don't love is I don't usually have this apron and this leg all flush, which means on the same level. I like to step the apron back just a hair. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to triple click that apron so it's all one object, and then I'm going to click move, and I'm going to try to move this guy back a little bit like that. And we're going to move it back 1/8. So I do 1 divided by 8 and type in the inches, and when I hit enter, I've just moved it back and kind of set it backwards just 1/8, and that makes the table look really pretty and nice when you do that. You don't want everything all flush and on the same plane. So there we have the very good start to our table. I know that's a lot of information in a short amount of time, but I think you guys are doing really well. So keep up the good work here, okay? All right, so now that we have that, we want to kind of try to copy that a little bit. So I'm going to come over here, and I want to try to copy that apron. I want to try to rotate that apron over to this side over here. Now this is something I've never actually done in SketchUp before, so I'm excited to see how it works. We're going to try this rotate tool right here. And we've already selected the apron. It's already triple selected, so hopefully it knows that we want to rotate the apron. We want to make sure that our rotate, we were kind of looking down on the object from a bird's eye view, and we want to make sure that our rotate has a blue on it. And we're going to grab this like this, and we're going to rotate it around like this until it has a green axis. It says on green axis, and I click. And I thought that would have done it, but it come to find out it didn't. So I'm going to try it again. I'm going to click, and then I'm going to rotate it around on the green. Maybe I come down here to red. Oh, that's what's going on. Okay. So I'm making a small mistake here. So I'm going to just hit undo and undo my small mistake. All right, so as you can see, is when I just tried to rotate that object, the whole apron left. And what I want to do is I really want to make a copy. So I don't know if you remember this, but we held down the control button when we want to make a copy of the leg. Same thing here. We're going to hit down the control button, and we're going to try to rotate it around. Boy, I'm having bad luck here. All right, that did not work. I'm going to step backwards. You know, guys, sometimes I step backwards too much. Sometimes SketchUp is really tough. So let's try it one last time. I'm going to hit Control, and I'm going to rotate it around here. Oh, so close. Oh, it did work. All right, good. We're getting there. Nah, it didn't quite work. All right, well, I could rotate it around here, but you can see it wouldn't really end up where we want it to end up. So let's try it one last time from here. No. What if I zoom in? All right, I'm going to hit Control, and I'm going to try to rotate it around again. That time it worked. Boom. Bam. Boy, that was difficult. If that doesn't work for you, and you struggled more than me just then, because that was a big struggle, just build yourself a rectangle right here and pull it out, just like we did the time before. Make it 14.5 again. You don't need to rotate it around, but I really wanted to try that. So the other thing I want to do is this is a little bit off center here. I do want to move it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this move tool. Where's my move tool? I'm on rotate. So I go into rotate and I go back to this regular move tool. And I want to zoom in here and I want to make sure that I move this endpoint all the way to that endpoint. Boom. And then I want to try to move this back 1/8 of an inch. And look at that, actually landed right on 1/8 of an inch. So there I have a pretty good look at my table. So once again, I'm going to try to copy this leg. Oops, I've screwed that up. So I got to, it undid it for me. Excellent. All right, so I'm going to come over here. I'm going to select this leg now. And remember, we're going to try to move it. So we're going to make a copy of the leg. And we're going to move it to right here. So once again, I'm going to hit Control, and I'm going to drag it down here and make sure it ends up where you want it. Now I'm a little bit off, so I got to make sure that, there it is. You could zoom in, and zooming in sometimes really helps that stuff. So once again, I am going to try to make this rail. I think I can move it over to here. So let's try to do that. Let's triple click on this rail, 1, 2, 3. So I have the whole rail. I'm going to click this move button. And remember, we're not just going to move it because then the whole thing would move. We're going to hit Control and move, and we're going to move it down to this face right there. Boom. Now that we've done that, we're going to try to move it, step it back just 1/8 of an inch, right? So I'm going to take this, I'm going to move it to the top, I'm going to step this back, drag it along the leg about 1/8 of an inch. And look at it, I already ended up on 1/8. So we're getting there. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. All right. So let's try to get this leg. Woo. Okay, I have a floating apron hanging around there. I don't know what's going on there. I'm going to just hit delete on that one and pretend like it never happened. All right, we're looking good here though. Now we're going to try to move this leg. So we're going to do Control. We're going to drag it down to here. We should zoom in a little bit. Oops, I didn't like that. I didn't quite make it, as you can see. I'm a little off, so I want to make sure that this guy... I'm going to undo that because actually I made a copy. I want to move this to that endpoint there. And if you click endpoint to endpoint, they usually end up in sync. And I know this is tough. Try to bear with me. And then I'm on endpoint to endpoint, so I know I'm connected. Now this time I want to move my leg out a little bit. So I'm going to move this guy out this way 1/8 of an inch. And that already says 1/8 of an inch. So it kind of picks up on what you're wanting to do here. So we're looking okay. We're not looking too bad. We're starting to look kind of like a table. All right. So here I'm going to triple click on that, and I'm going to try to move this railing down here to this side right here. So I'm going to hit Control so it makes a copy. Oh, I'm on mouse, not move. So I want to make sure I'm over here on move. I'm going to hit Control. I'm going to drag this over to this edge. Yeah, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to hit Control, and I'm going to drag the whole object. And see how I went endpoint to endpoint that time? I grabbed the endpoint and put it on the endpoint. That's really helpful to do. That will help out your movement a lot, and it will kind of line things up. But I wasn't quite lined up, so I got to move it endpoint to endpoint. Then I'm going to take this, and I'm going to try to move it back on the face 1/8 of an inch. And down here, my distance says 1/8 of an inch, so I know I have it. All right, so I am in a really good spot. Look at it. Here is kind of my table. What just happened there? I didn't want to do that, so I have to step backwards. All right, so I'm on move, not mouse. I clicked over here. So this is my table. It's looking amazing. All it needs now is a tabletop, and I think we can call it a day. So this is the easiest step. We come up here, we click on this endpoint, we make a large rectangle, we click on that endpoint. There's our two-dimensional rectangle. We use the push-pull tool, and we're going to pull it upwards. It's got a funny shape to it. That's odd, isn't it? We're going to pull it up till we get 3/4 of an inch. And there's our table. If we want, we can pull these out just a little tiny bit so that they overhang, because that's what our real table's going to do. And there we have our beautiful little table. I know it's difficult. I get frustrated too. It's a very hard program. But hopefully you learned a few things here, and I'm hoping that you can kind of show me some kind of representation of a table here. So give it your best shot. Remember how I told you to move around. That's a really difficult thing. Zoom in, zoom out. When you click your your mouse button, it spins. If you hit shift and do that same thing, you can pull it side to side or up or down. Remember to copy something, we're going to hit control and use this move button. And that's going to copy things over. So those are a lot of different things to do there. Hopefully you have good luck with this and it's not a bad assignment. Best of luck. Shoot me an email if you're struggling and I'll try to help out.